Hello world and welcome to Bipey Fox. This is episode 14 and I've called it I have planned this. The third and last podcast I'll ever plan. And I'm reading this podcast completely verbatim. So here goes. Not a drop of blood. A scientist wanted to test a theory. I needed a volunteer to get to the last consequences. Finally found him. He was a death sentence who would be executed in the electric chair. The scientist proposed to the convicted, which is the following. He would participate in a scientific experiment that consisted of a small cut in his pulse, with the purpose of his blood slowly dripping to the last drop. He explained to him that he had minimal chances of survival, but that anyway, his death would be without suffering or pain. He wouldn't even notice. The convicted man accepted because dying in this way was preferable to dying in the electric chair. They placed him on a stretcher and tied his body so he couldn't move. Then they made a small cut on his wrist and placed a small aluminium vessel under his arm. The cut was superficial, just his first layers of skin, but it was enough for him to believe he had actually cut his veins. Under the bed, a serum jar was placed with a small valve regulating the passage of liquid in the form of drops falling into the vase. The convicted man could hear the drip and counted every drop of what he believed was his blood. The scientist, without the convicted person seeing him, was closing the valve so that the drip would diminish, with the intention of him to think his blood was ending. With the minutes passing, his face was losing colour, his heart rate speeded up, and he lost air to his lungs. When despair reached its peak, the scientist completely shut down the valve, and then the convicted man went into cardiac arrest and died. The scientist managed to prove that the human mind strictly meets everything he perceives, and that the individual accepts it, whether positive or negative, acting on our entire psychic and organic part. I've always thought that the mind has no limits when deceiving itself. Worse, even when you don't understand things and manufacture what you can to understand. Like when we see things, we take them as supernatural, but that really aren't. Many times in our life, problems that seem to be disastrous. Possibly there is someone who tells us that there is a small possibility of reversing that situation, but we decide to believe only what we are able to perceive and imagine. Who thinks of failing already failed? Whoever thinks of winning takes one step forward. That was written by someone else, for the record. And I read it exactly how I saw it. And this is my bit. Life is hard. You never know what goes through anyone's head. Love the ones that love you in abundance. Care, smile, hug, connect, love, and love some more. To whoever wrote this, thank you. I read it as grief. Grief is hard. To Pop, Dan, Granny and Grandma, I miss you every day. This one's for my family. Keep smiling, stay good.